Good afternoon and welcome to a webinar from Linköping University. Today we're going to talk about a program in ethics, science and policy, which is kind of a newish program. We used to have this as a one-year program, but we now have an extended two-year program. A few housekeeping things before we start, and I introduce my guests today. This webinar is being recorded, so you can view it on our website. We'll put a link on the program page as well. Please put your questions that you want to ask us in the Q&A section, so you'll see it, I think, below. There's also a chat function where you can say hello to each other, say where you're from, but we won't be looking there to answer your questions. We'll be looking in the Q&A section. If you have any questions for us, you can either hit reply on communications that you've already received from us, or you can ask them in the Q&A section, even if you're watching this recorded, as those questions will be forwarded to us. The webinar, we're going to talk for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. We'll talk a bit about the program. I'm here with the program director and a student, and then we're going to open up for questions from you guys. So, I mean, you can put the questions in the Q&A when you think of them, but we'll deal with them. We'll address them at the end of our chat. I think that's it from me. My name is Therese Winder. I'm Communications Officer. I work with the information, the communications around our international programs, and I'm here with.
I'm Garance in English, if you know that.
And you're from?
I'm from France, and I'm a student in the program currently.
Oh, yeah, in the one-year program.
In the one-year program.
In the one that's applied ethics.
And my name is Lars Lindblom, and I'm the program director for this program that's going now and the one that's coming to start in 2024.
Yeah, thank you. Tell us briefly about the program. Briefly, why have we always offered the applied ethics? I mean, why do we want to offer a program in ethics?
Well, because it's important and because it's fun. We think that it's interesting to think about what to do with important things, what to do with healthcare, who gets what healthcare under what circumstances, how to think about risk management practices, what to think about justice, those kinds of things. But we think those are important because we find them interesting in themselves. But also they're important for how we live together, for what society becomes, and for making the world a better place if we can.
Mm-hmm. And what attracted you to the field of ethics?
Exactly that. I think for me it was the perfect sweet spot between theory and practice. I've studied humanities before, art history, and then I had a working life in technology area. And I think when you go in the world after your studies, but even if you're just watching the news as a general citizen, ethical questions come up all the time. And having a theoretical background to come back to the world and to address these real life questions and to think about them in a structured way, in a conceptually informed way, is extremely rewarding, and it helps making sense of daily life and the big questions, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's a really, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've had this program as a one-year program, which is the one you're currently studying. But as of next year, we'll be offering a two-year version. What's the difference between, well, apart from the time, obviously?
Well, the difference is that we have a program where the focus is on applied ethics for 1 year that we really like. But now we're doing a two-year program where we add on to that issues in the philosophy of science, or rather questions about what is a good explanation or what is a good description of these important phenomena in the world. And we think that if you do both those, you can get even further in making sense of the world and perhaps making sense of what might be an improvement. Because, of course, when you think about, well, let's take the example of healthcare ethics again. If you think about healthcare ethics, your ethical standpoint will rest on a lot of ideas about science and what happens within science, what it is for someone to become healthy, which is in itself both a sort of a theoretical question for medical science, but also an ethical question, which often turns on what is a good life. So we thought that if we do dig deeper into what's a good explanation and description of the world, and keep doing the applied ethics part, we would have something perhaps even
Even better.
cooler than we had before.
Even better. We actually have one slide with an overview. If we can bring that up, and we just kind of briefly have a look at what the courses are, because the program is 2 years, which means there are 4 semesters. And the first semester, you're looking at quite a lot of philosophy of policy and of science. Is that more, for me who's not studied ethics, it looks quite abstract, but it's not. You explained before, it's actually, you can bring it down to a tangible level.
Yes, the idea behind all of these courses really is that, well, we will do some abstract thinking. We will learn how to say utilitarianism without getting stuck, etc. But the reason why we're really interested in what we ought to do, what morality really is because we're interested in doing things in the world. And all these courses are about practices in the world that we might be interested in. So the course Philosophy of Policy Making, which seems abstract in a sense, it's really about several different cases that you be recognized from the newspaper or recognized from talking to friends about politics, etc. So it will be about how to handle questions. We talked about healthcare ethics before. So healthcare distribution, it will be about how to think about risks with regards to traffic systems. It will be about how to think about the internet and democracy. So that first course will be really about a lot of these different cases, and we'll do that for 2 reasons. One reason is to think about those cases because those are important. Second one is to introduce theory that you will have use of throughout the program. So it will be a case-based course given in order to sort of set the stage both theoretically and case-wise.
To give you the kind of, academic foundation to tackle the big questions. And
can I just add that all the courses are planned to do really 3 things. They're planned to give you some, or maybe 4 when I think of it. But so first of all, the courses are supposed to be about real-world issues. But the courses are also supposed to introduce you to relevant aspects of ethics or applied ethics, relevant aspects of the philosophy of science, of explanations and descriptions. And it's supposed to teach you something new about writing. So that's another thing that goes through each of these courses. So when you look at the name of the course, you'll just see, for instance, we had taxation on one of the slides. That seems like perhaps even a boring course about some policy that's not super hot, so to speak. But that course will tell you also about communication over borders when it comes to different fields of study in the university. So we might have a seminar where you explain philosophy to economists and the other way around. Okay. We're going to talk about theories of equality and justice. We're going to talk about the philosophy of economics in order to say something about what's a good tax and what's a bad tax.
So you're getting the cross-disciplinary approach within the program. Do you I know you're doing the first year, the 1 year program, but do you recognize any of these courses? Are they?
Yeah, I think the content of what we're studying in the 1 year program is going to be part of the 2 year program in maybe a different structure, but much of the theory, haven't changed anyways, so they're going to be here, and much of the kind of subfields in ethics are still here, so it's going to be, recognizable content. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite area?
Do I have a favorite area? I'm really looking forward to a course we've not started yet, which is business ethics, because it relates with personal previous experience, but I think I think any course I'm currently taken is my favorite one, because you discover a lot, and it really, I mean, I get into it. So yeah, the current one.
Right. Second slide, we'll see. So this is the first year, and then the second year, are they elective when you get to this level? I mean, previously semester 1 and 2, they're all mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is this different? I mean, because 30 credits, if you don't follow the Bologna system, is 1 semester. So the whole program is 120 credits ECTS, which means you do 60 per year. So how?
Well, so semester 3 is made in order to make room for electives. So we're giving 4 courses, but we're working right now on trying to make, since this is a bit in the future, so we're not, everything's not set in stone, but we have several universities that we are discussing exchange programs with at that point in time. There is also the opportunity to do internships, and we're also looking into that with potential partners. We can't make any promises there, but what we can say is that for each course in the program, we'll also have at least 1 guest lecture in order to make room for the students to make these contacts. So again, for the first course, which I find is cool, the mayor of Linköping is coming to give a lecture on what he sees as problems in ethics, science, and policy from his perspective as mayor of Linköping. So we're working on creating these meeting places, at least.
So anchoring it in real life and connected, which is one thing I was going to kind of ask you about the program, links to both research, but also to I suppose not really industry, but you know the society around us. I mean, does the program have links?
Well, it does have links. It has links both in the work that we do in the department in general. So we have people who work with policies making with regards to healthcare, for instance. We have people who work with research ethics at a governmental level. We have people who've done work for the Educational Board of Sweden, etc. So we have this program because we think this kind of philosophy, if you will, is important, and that is important because of the contact with the world. And then the other aspect is that we have these visitors that we're having for each program. So at sometimes it might be from just another field in academia. So we'll meet up with a taxation course, for instance. We'll have a professor in tax law come in and give his perspective of what we've been doing in the course. But in general, we're working with people, at least someone from the outside for each course.
To kind of make it connected to real world issues.
Yes, and I forgot to say, the final thing is that we as a department, we're sort of a cross-disciplinary. We're a philosophy department, but cross-disciplinary. So our teachers that will teach this program are also giving courses at the technical faculty, at the medical faculty, at other courses in the humanities and economics, etc. So we're interested in this overlap of things from a philosophical perspective.
Great. How come you chose to come to do this program at Linköping? I mean, I can imagine there's lots of ethics programs around the world, but why did you choose to come here?
So you mean in this program in Linköping, not ethics in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked into it a lot, like the 1-year program description at the time. I was interested in some of the testimonials I could read about the program, which put an emphasis on that balance between theory and real life issues. The fact that it was a lot of focus on writing was appealing to me. The fact that it was very self-driven, so it is obviously structured and you have lectures, but you have also a lot of self-studying time where you need to put the work yourself, which I thought was a good one. I was interested in the topics and the fact that the alumni seemed to go both either the academic route or the professional life, and I thought it was a really good sign of being successful at that sweet spot. And the last maybe thing that I was really interested in was a mention of alumni saying you have to be open to be challenged and to have your views and opinions discussed and maybe challenged, put simply, especially because students are likely to come from different backgrounds, both from different countries, but different study background. And so having these very different starting points to come to a topic, which does create conversation, but it does so in a safe, structured way where you can try and go deep in a topic and uncover any sort of unprocessed maybe opinion and bias, which I think like university is the perfect place to do that. And yeah.
I think you touch upon a good thing then, in that, you know, we often talk about this in terms of the Swedish kind of learning environment, how encouraged you are to challenge both your peers, your students, but also your lecturers, your professors. Was that new to you? This kind of where you're kind of expected to you really, you know, give your opinion, whether it was kind of, you know, whether you thought it would fly or not.
So I think giving one's opinion, I mean, in France, we're used to complaining a lot, but it's more like it's welcome and in a way that is absolutely not necessarily confrontational. And that is what I really appreciate, that any, and it's not, like philosophy is not about opinion, it's about argument, which is much more interesting to me and appealing than opinion, because opinion, like I have mine, you have yours, and then end of conversation. So what I think is interesting is more that, I don't know if it's proper to Swedish culture, but it feels like it's at least something quite specific, I think. Yes, that it's transparent, it's honest, and yet it doesn't have to be confrontational in an aggressive way. And that, I think, is a very constructive place and starting point to study.
Okay. And what about the workload? You've said, you know, there's a combination of lectures and self-study. So you need to be disciplined. And actually, I mean, how have you found the workload? Is it, you know, you do a few hours here, or is it, you know, more full-time?
Yeah, no, it is full-time. And I remember seeing a testimonial that did put emphasis on that on the website. And it's true, because even though your week are not packed with lectures, the preparation time for each lecture or seminar is kind of extensive. Is like there is a lot of reading to do, and it is really needed to be done before any lecture or any seminar. There are group work to be prepared for seminars that require coordination. So yes, there is a need for a good self-studying ethics, I guess, where you can
You
structure
have
your
to.
time.
So you can't just kind of, you know, sit in the back of the class and coast through. You actually have to, you know, be prepared to
I mean, no one is going to be at the entrance of the classroom and say, please show me that you've read before a lecture. Before a seminar, yes, you have pre-assignments to give in, to hand. But during a lecture, you won't, but you have to. Like, otherwise, it will be impossible at the end of any class to give your assignment back.
What do you expect of students?
Well, I expect students to do what Garance just outlined. And I mean, it's a master's program, so it's also that you need to have that ethics of studying, because now you're showing that you are a master of science, and that is your work. But other than that, I expect them to be interested in the argument. You really just listen to Garance and you get it. Because philosophy is, we're trying together to figure out these difficult things, and it's not a debate. We're really trying to figure out difficult things like what is justice really, and that's not something you sort of try to discuss to score points over, but something that people have really been talking about for thousands of years. It's hard work, or big work.
And I suppose the extra challenge and value is people being from different countries, different cultures,
Oh, yeah.
where you have a very different view on. I mean, I can imagine corporal punishment, for example, of children. That in Sweden, it's illegal, but some people come from countries where that's very much part of child rearing. I mean, how do you?
Yes, and I mean that's part of the luxury of my job. So I get smart young people from all over the world come into my lecture hall and tell me things. That's a wonderful thing in my job. It's super interesting, and you can really see how that is pedagogical in itself. You see that someone says something that just shakes loose an assumption that somebody else had about what society is and how we live together, etc. So that quite kind of intercultural discussion is so helpful in thinking more deeply about philosophy or about just what are we to do with these important policy topics. So that is, I mean, really what I hope that our future students will bring as well. I think that an interest in how are we supposed to deal with this issue, and perhaps some motivation to make the world a better place, and that would be perfect.
That would be perfect. That's what you need. What have you? I mean, you've been here for a few months now. What have you struggled? I mean, has there been any challenges, or has it been completely smooth sailing throughout the whole thing? Have there been bumps where you've thought, God, why am I doing this?
Let me think. I think luckily any bumps about why am I doing things, I think not, which I'm really grateful for, but I think it was more maybe a deepening of thinking, yes, I made the right choice. And maybe, yes, at first, like the very first week, there is that sense of, because for me it was also a big leap of going back to studying after, full-time job at some point. So there is this kind of leap of apprehension. Oh, how am I going to manage that? And is it really the topic I was interested in? But I think it became more and more clear. What is difficult? I mean, then we can talk practicalities regarding students
living here or being
and that I was lucky to already live in Sweden, so there were a few things that I had cleared, but yes, finding an accommodation can be a challenge always, and for that, I mean, the recommendation, Linköping is really good in the sense, in one of the sense that it's cheaper than other cities in Sweden where you could study. And one of the big tips is to sign up for student accommodation before you know even if you're accepted to the program, because then you can start.
You get queue points. So you get a point for every day you're in the queue when you've kind of expressed an interest. Yes, I want housing. We have an international program students blog. Have a look. Definitely. I don't think we have anyone from the ethics program this year writing for us, but they have lots of these things. For example, how you go about finding accommodation, signing up, and it's really, really useful.
It is, and I remember reading the newsletters I received and taking tips from there in many cases. I didn't sign up for the accommodation, regretted it, because then it was too late to have enough points, so I managed otherwise, so accommodation was one. And I think if there's any possibility to, it can be really nice to come to Linköping before the course actually starts, like a few days at least to land, because I think for some of our classmates who arrived really just like the day before or something and had to find accommodation and things, it's a lot of stress to take in the first week, a lot of new things.
And there's also, in August, there's a lot of fun stuff happening. So even though you do have the starting date, but there's also, you have the peer students who are a couple of years older. They do so many activities to make the new students feel welcome. So I think it's worth coming, a few days, up to a week almost, to kind of get to know your new home. And it takes at least the stress of, God, where am I? Off, because you're bound to be a bit apprehensive and excited but nervous to start. Can
I add some bumps, even though we didn't have any? So because I think there are two bumps that students tend to have, at least if you come from other top subjects than philosophy. And one is reading philosophy texts. It's sometimes harder work than you would think, because for some of our courses it seems that we have few readings, but there are readings that take more work than usual. Not because there's more difficult in a sense, but because, as Garance mentioned before, we're all about the argument. So every text will be a long argument, and that kind of reading will take some time for people to get into at the beginning of a program. And also the fact that we're doing something in this program and in philosophy in general that is kind of unusual for other subjects, namely we're telling you to make an ought statement or to have a moral view at the end of the paper. So different from a social science paper, you're supposed to keep your values outside of the argument, for instance. We're telling you to actually have a view, and that takes some getting used to. If you spend 3 years of your life making sure that you keep your values outside of your papers, and then we come and say, well, put them inside, but put them in the proper argumentative structure, that takes some learning time.
It's kind of opening up, showing your, in a way, a vulnerability of actually daring, because I think a lot of people, especially I think in the current climate, it's very kind of polarized, and I think people don't necessarily dare say what they think. So this is an exercise in actually.
Yeah. And I mean, a part of taking philosophy is that we won't grade you on being a good person or being right, really. We're interested in our hope when the students have taken our program is that they will have better, stronger arguments for the things that they believe, and they provide arguments that other people can look at and say, well, that makes sense. That's our goal, rather than to say that you have to have this view. That's not. I wouldn't want to give a program in Lars Lindblom studies, but rather just helping people to make the argument better and get to the point where it leads.
What they actually think.
Yeah.
What do people end up doing after the program? I mean, we can only look at the 1-year program so far, but.
Well, it's a mix of going into academia. So a lot of people go on to do doctoral studies, and the feedback we get from them is that they have felt well prepared and better prepared than their other people in their cohorts a lot of the time. So we think we're doing something right on that side. And the other side is, of course, that you go into some area of policy, governance, etc. So there are these two paths. So we have someone who graduated just the other year, is just up the road here in Technique. Well, maybe it doesn't matter to students who aren't here, but so someone work in technology. So there's a quite a big spread, but some sort of policy or research has been the experience we've had thus far.
What do you want to do with it when you're finished? Or do you not know? I mean, but is it a stepping stone to changing your career, or is it just to kind of enhance the environment you already worked in?
It's still open. It can be both, and I think that's one of the really enriching standpoint to be from in the program. I'm considering pursuing in academia, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see. You've still got quite a few months
it's still fresh.
to go. But I think what I'd like to kind of, from what I'm hearing here is, with the writing and reading, the strong English skills, language skills are really essential, I assume, to be able to. So you need to not just write like you do in a lot of social science programs, but you really do need to have a kind of a good command of being able to read text, complicated texts, and actually take on board what it says.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean the trick is, because we work in this field of philosophy, and we talk about the arguments, and the way you phrase your argument or the sentences you use, if you use not the word that you thought you were using, or if you use a word that means a host of different things, the argument doesn't work anymore. So that's the reason why we get kind of picky about language, because we're asking people, what is the argument? And then if the argument isn't clear, then that would be
Yeah.
a problem in this kind of course.
And the
It's-
nuances of, I
yeah.
suppose, the words you choose.
Okay, can I say something?
Oh, yeah.
Like I absolutely like. I think yes, English very important, and at the same time there is also, not at the same time, but to maybe go further, because we read the same material and because words are also being defined within the field of the theory. So the concepts have their own definitions. There is not always necessarily, for instance, an advantage to a native speaker over a non-native, because we are all going to anyway have to clarify our understanding of a word that is maybe slightly different than normal daily use.
Utilitarianism.
Utilitarian, that I use every day out of. And the second thing I think that is nice as well is I think there are services at university to help improve English, but you need, like, otherwise it's going to be very frustrating anyways to not be able to convey one's arguments and points easily.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, we've had this international program for quite some time now, and it works. It's just that you need to be at a sufficient level of English, and then we sort of discuss and define together in the group. And I should also perhaps say that what has worked for the old program and what we build on in the new one is that we're very used to having students from different fields, so that you come from cognitive science or philosophy or history, etc., and we meet and we sort of catch everyone up, and then we go ahead.
It's one of our few programs that's actually open to lots of different disciplines in the students' backgrounds. We've talked for a lot longer than the 20, 25 minutes. I said I'm going to round up before we move on to your questions. We're also going to stop the recording after I've done the roundup, so that the question session that is live is only available for those who are watching it live. So any questions that you have after watching this, if you're watching the recording, just put them in the Q&A section and they'll be forwarded to us. The application period for this program, which will start next year, next August, is open now. It's open until 15th of January. So you have until then to apply, and it's an online application at universityadmissions.com. You then have until the 1st of February to submit the supporting documents, and the results come out end of March, something like 22nd, 27th. It's on our website, but it's important to bear in mind that if you're a fee-paying student, which means you don't have a European citizenship, that means you need to pay your application fee. But you can apply for a scholarship if you're a fee-paying student, and this information, I think, was that Luke? We will have the information available for you on the screen later, where you can actually follow a link. But it's important to know that if you want to apply for a scholarship, you need to select this program as your priority 1. You can select up to 4. But there's lots of information at liu.se/education. Also have a look at our Instagram account. It's a bit like the blog. Instagram, blog, and our podcast, Fika with Us. Those are really, really useful. Lots of information about what it's like to live here, being a student here. And you can ask questions of our current students. So it's actually run by our students. But with that said, thank you for those of you who have been watching this recording.